Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Friends with Death Benefits. Welcome to the horrible hour Christmas episode. This hour we're going to just dive into what the holidays look like. We're going to talk a little spirituality, and we have a special guest, Bo Stringer. Thanks for tuning in. Sit back and enjoy.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends with Death Benefits. My name is Justin Paulson. With me, as always, is my super exciting co-host, Miss Tiff Mussman. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you, sir?
I'm okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think. We'll see. We'll see how I feel at the end of this. I don't know. Hanging out with you makes me kind of emotional.
Yeah, I have that effect.
I got my water, though.
Tiff
says I drink a lot more when I cry.
He does.
It makes me sound like, if out of context, I sound like an alcoholic. Like, you drink a lot more when you cry.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that.
And I don't even drink.
Yeah, when Justin's bawling his eyes out over there, he
You got to
drinks
rehydrate.
incessantly.
It's
Yeah,
a constant cycle. You know, it's...
How you been? I haven't seen you for a week.
Yeah, we took a break from each other involuntarily. I don't know. Maybe,
Was it involuntary?
I don't know. Yeah, well, you tell me. But
Yeah.
I'm doing all right. Had an all right week.
Yeah.
Things are okay. We got through the whole Thanksgiving season.
Mm-hmm.
Still alive.
Yeah,
So,
we made it.
yeah,
We made it.
we made it.
Yeah.
It was
Like,
as weird as I expected.
Was it
Yeah.
weird?
Yeah, I think I took comfort in knowing everyone else was suffering too. You know, the fact that no one could be with their loved ones, it just really warmed my heart a little bit. I just don't like being alone in situations, you know.
Yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, it ended up just being me and my wife, which, you know, if I could pick one person to spend the day with, it'd be her. So we hung out, we ate some food, and there were weird moments of like, for example, like getting food ready. Like the night before, I had a tougher night before because I would always go to my mom's house and, like, you know, do all the prep and hang out with her, and we'd listen to music and laugh and have fun. And I think as I was hanging out the night before doing that, like baking pies with Alyssa and stuff, because that's what I do. I'm a real Martha Stewart. I bake pies. I was just like, wow, this is different, and it's how it's going to be from now on. And, you know, there was some heaviness, but I think we kept in touch, and
Yeah.
that helped.
And I was really proud of you. You put up your Christmas tree, which you said
I
you were
did.
not going to do. So
I definitely had
pulled one out.
reservations about that for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm. How'd you feel after you did it?
I felt pretty good. We got a new one this year, so like I was kind of excited about that, like, because we got to buy some new stuff for it, and like I think that's going forward. Like, I still don't know how ready I am for it entirely, but like building on like new traditions and new ideas, like, is probably going to be the thing that's going to help me be okay going forward with not being able to do any of the stuff I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This is obviously the first of hopefully many years still having Christmases.
Yeah.
So, you know, we did that. Like, for example, me and Liz, every year we go and we pick out an ornament for each other that reminds us of each other. And that way, every year we have a couple new ornaments on the tree. So we did that, and it was all right. You were right. It was, you know, I don't like to say that on record too often, but
Yeah.
you were right. It definitely made me a little more cheery, made me think about more positive stuff.
I mean, think about what it would be like sitting in your house as the days encroach of Christmas Day, and like you don't have a Christmas tree up, and everybody's, you know, decorated for the holidays, and you're just sitting in your recliner just staring at your picture window with no tree in front of it. I mean, you don't want
and no
that
one's
for yourself.
coming over because they know how weird you're being.
Right. Yeah.
You're right. No,
Yeah.
it's this is better.
This is better. It's best that you can do right now.
Yeah.
So just got to keep your traditions.
How
going.
was Thanksgiving for you?
Yeah, it was good. The day before, I feel like I took out the emotional trash, got it out of the way so I could write it out and spend it with close friends that I love and trust, and basically the family that we have chosen to build around us. And
Sure.
yeah, and it was good. Played some games, ate some amazing brisket, and skipped over the turkey this year and did some smoked meats and stuff. So yeah, it was good. And then the day after was a lot like the day before. It was just, it's almost like having a I think every year, whether or not you're grieving or not, you have like an emotional, or you have, a bit of like a holiday hangover. Some people, the day after Thanksgiving is an actual hangover because some of us like to drink on Thanksgiving. But I just felt really emotionally depleted the following day again. And
well, you probably were ignoring it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because I was, it's like, and that's a good thing. Like, I think.
Denial is a good thing.
Well, having good people around you that can distract you, and
for sure.
So you're not just wallowing in it.
And it's like, it's not something you always have to talk about, but it's not off the table if I need to. And I think that's something that's really important to me, is that I need to be able to talk about it if I need to. Mm-hmm. And there are some people just can't hang with that. And that's why my social circle's gotten really small, or that I've just chosen not to.
And that's why
really
you
talk
to spend so much time with me.
Yeah, because you welcome the darkness. Yeah. So yeah, it was good. We put up our tree a couple weeks prior and stuff. And I know I've said in the past, like, I'm not very much a Christmas person for my own reasons, but this year I feel a little more festive, which is really odd. Mm-hmm. Ethan loved Christmas, and so I'm really trying to like hone in on that. But Christmas means something more to me, or something different to me than it did growing up, or even as a young adult, or when Ethan was a young kid and stuff. Just because I've kind of tapped into the more spiritual side of that, and just means something different to me than the commercialism and the gifts and that sort of thing. Yeah. So
I think we're going to try to talk about that a bit today. Kind of like a mixture of what we're expecting from Christmas, what Christmas means to us, and kind of just, I think
it's a good time to touch on the spiritual side of things. I think, in my opinion, and I think I've said this before, is that I don't know how people can endure heavy loss without leaning on some sort of faith. I do know people who have done it. I wouldn't say they're doing it successfully. They're leaning more on the substance side of things, and that's fine. That's fine. That's just not where I want to go with it. But so I thought it would be a good time of the year just to talk about spirituality and grief, and and really what the holidays mean to people who are in our position, and some practical things that you can do both spiritually and just in your daily lives, just to kind of trudge through. And so we brought a special guest in with us today.
I'm gonna say special
he's
friend.
Very special, super special. Close, I would say, probably the inner part of my inner circle. And
you have an inner circle.
I have an inner circle. Yeah, I don't like to tell people that, because then you're gonna want to be a part of it, and
you're wrong.
It's just like
it's just that's way too much pressure.
Yeah, right now I'm not taking applications for that. So, but we brought in Bo Stringer today. So welcome to the show, Bo.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So Bo is obviously a super good friend. We've known each other for a long time. Yep. And new friends with Justin, just because Justin insists on being friends with everyone I'm friends with.
That's how it happened. Let's lie to the people. Let's pretend I'm not awesome, I guess.
Yeah. Way to humble yourself.
Bo enjoys being my friend.
I do.
He does.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's new, but I've loved it. Yeah.
I think we're really hitting it off.
For sure.
So what do you do, Bo, for your job?
Yeah, great question. I like to tell people that don't know me that I run a nonprofit.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Mainly just because, I'm a pastor, but when I say that, a lot of times people just kind of shut down and or instantly start apologizing for whatever they said prior to conversation or whatever. It just kind of makes people weirded out. So, but yeah, I'm a pastor. Church here in Mason City called Rhythm Church. Been there since like February of 2012, so almost 9 years in February. So I worked with teenagers for a bulk of that time, and then transitioned to the lead pastor role 3.5 4 years ago.
So you were actually Ethan's youth pastor.
Yes.
When I started forcing Ethan to go to youth group.
Yep.
And that's how we sort of met. Actually,
that's right.
was actually through through
Yep.
that program. So,
Yeah. And that was I'll never forget the first time I met Ethan and you as well. So it was good.
Yeah.
Great times.
Yeah.
So.
So you've been doing the pastor gig for a long time.
Yeah.
So you've been through lots and lots of Christmas seasons.
I have.
Encountered lots and lots of different types of people and meeting them where they're at through the holidays.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not always holly jolly, right?
No. In fact, I think at least at our church, we're really intentional about both sides. The Christmas time or I guess the holiday season in general is just oftentimes portrayed as this really joyful and cheery and awesome time. But the reality is I would say the majority of people have lost or are in the midst of losing, or it brings up memories of hurt and of pain. And so rather than trying to act like that doesn't exist, we really try to encourage people to lean into that, and then are also sensitive to it as well. That the holiday season is also a time where a lot of people are hurting.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of memories. A lot of times it's special memories with the loved ones that are no longer around. And that's why I think it's so special what you guys are doing and talking about this, because again, we try to be really intentional about not shying away from that, but saying, hey, we see you. We see you in your grief this holiday season. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to enter in and really feel those emotions during this time, because really, I think the loved ones you've lost, in my opinion, I think are better served by actually feeling your emotions rather than just acting like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be cheery this time of year. So
yeah, because I think it's like one of those cliche bullshit statements when people are saying, well, your loved one would want you to be holly jolly and that sort of thing. But I think really, the people that we've lost would expect us and would be okay with us to have sadness, because it's a human response, right? It's like what we do, but also that they would want us to also try to celebrate and to enjoy each other and enjoy really what's in front of us, right?
Yeah, exactly. But they're not there, and and that's okay. It's okay to be sad about that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, so much of the holidays, and that's what I love about the holiday season just in general, is just that it's tied to so many memories with the things that are really the most important in life. And and again, we can argue about what that is in Christmas. I might have a perspective different than someone else, but my memories are, very closely tied to the things that are most important in my life around the holiday season. And so there's something beautiful about it, but there's also something really tragic about that as well.
Yeah.
Just for people in their grief. So
sucks. When you, do you in your job and experience in this job, do you find more people reaching out to you to express their loss? Or, I mean, I think we all know something, I don't know, cosmic happens where people lose people around the holidays, just pretty heavy doses.
It definitely seems that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially right now. But do you think that you experience a higher volume of people coming to you and saying, I'm really hurting right now? Or I'm really struggling this.
Yeah, I think yes and no. So I'd say yes, the people that I think have trusted at least our faith community with their life and their spiritual life, yes. They reach out and say, this is a more difficult time for me. We'd be praying for, myself, my family, or they'll just call and just share what's on their heart and how, upset and sad they are. But at the same time, I would say a lot of times just people in general just tend to bottle it and they don't really want to talk about it. And again, I think that's why it's so great. What you guys are doing is talking about something that's real and honestly an emotion that, like I said, a lot of times people just choose to bottle up. Even this time of year, they're just going to shove it down deep and just try to get through it, Yeah. And so I'd say it's kind of both. There's not a ton of people that really reach out that I'm not familiar with, but again, the people that are kind of in our faith community, yeah, for sure, they reach out. And in fact, just last week I had a conversation with a really good friend of mine who lost both an uncle and a grandparent just in the same week, you know, one to just natural causes, another one got really sick. And yeah, and so now again, last week they're going to have to endure this holiday season without two close people that they love dearly. And it's sad.
Do you see people enter into a more spiritual lifestyle after loss? I mean, in your experience, or even after, maybe people are coming to church for the first time on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And it's because they're alone or need to find something to like connect with. Do you see people starting to plug in more to a spiritual life after those things?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the things that honestly, it's not that I look forward to that, but it's one of those things that, yes, like I tell people, death is like the great equalizer. It is something that we all will face at some point in our life. There's, in my opinion, only one person that's beat it, and that's why he's a God and the person I follow. But other than that, every person on the planet Earth is going to be faced with that dilemma. Like what happens when I die? Or, you know, sure, you might think nothing, but if you think there's something else out there, then what is it? And so everyone is faced with that. And so especially when you lose someone you love, then those kinds of questions really start hitting home, because you think, oh, well, you know, other people have to deal with that. But then when it hits directly you and your life and your family, then you're kind of forced to then wrestle with, well, what do I think happens when I die or when someone close to me dies? Where is this person? Will I see them again? Things like that. And so that's yes. So answer your question, yes, for sure. And I love that. And I love that because I believe that what the Christian faith offers is hope, even in the midst of darkness. And so like Christianity gets, you know, a bad rap in a lot of ways, and rightfully so. I mean, Christians are often hateful and judgmental, and I work really hard at not being that and trying to tell the people that I pastor to not be that way. But we're not perfect, just like anyone else, but we get a lot of bad rap, and there's a lot of assumptions about Christianity that I don't think are necessarily true. And I think if I was going to boil it down to its simplest form, and I've said this to, I think, both of you before, but the reason I'm a Christian is because I believe Jesus Christ rose from the dead. And if I believe that to be true, that has some serious implications, not only for my life now, but also my afterlife and the people I love's afterlife. Because if that power to beat death, which is the great equalizer for all of us, if that power is available to people, which again, if I believe that it is available and it happened in history and is the most, you know, like the greatest moment in history when Jesus Christ rose from the dead. But if that same power is available to us as humans, then that has some serious implications. And so, so people that are searching and are looking for maybe some answers or for some comfort, I believe that the Christian faith can provide that, saying like, hey, death is not the end of the story. You know, and again, Christianity a lot of times gets focused on the cross. So like, you know, you go into a church, you see a cross, or people wearing a cross necklace, and yeah, like the cross is good and the cross is cool. A lot of things happen on the cross. You know, I don't want to get too theological, but Jesus wasn't unique because he died on a cross. You know, in fact, he died along two other criminals on both sides of him on crosses. So it wasn't the fact that he died on the cross is what made Jesus special. It's the fact that he walked out of the grave. I mean, that is ultimately, you know, and that's the hope that I think Christianity can provide people, especially that have experienced loss, is that, yeah, death doesn't get the final word here. You know, there's something beyond it. And that's great news. And that is kind of what I think people can cling to, at least if you choose to go like the Christianity spiritual route.
But like, and we've talked about this before too, the thing about God, the thing about Jesus and faith is that if you don't want that, God will give that to you too.
Exactly.
And if you like, it's not being forced upon you.
That's
like
right.
It's a choice that you're being given. Right. So, you know, I didn't choose to become a Christian, you know, or it wasn't forced upon me in this living space that I am in or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I made that choice, but that's the thing. If you choose not to believe that, then, and that's not your great comfort in whatever, in your moments of grief or whatever, then that's okay. Like God will will give that to you.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Yeah, I agree. And it's usually phrased like no one's on the bus to heaven that wants off, or no one's on the bus to what we would consider hell, or like the absence of God. No one's on, that bus that wants off either. Usually people, again, God gives everybody exactly what they want. If you don't want anything to do with God forever, that's what he'll give you. If you want everything to do with God forever, that's what you get. You know?
What would you say?
What
would you say to the people who ask, who would say, okay, well, my loved one committed suicide, and I was always raised to believe that if you commit suicide, you go to hell. So what would you say to the people who have lost someone and they A, haven't been saved, or B, have taken their own life, or so like that presents its own side of grief. Like if you're a Christian and you believe those things, that's heavy. So how would you respond?
Yeah, I was raised under the same kind of pretense, but I was definitely taught what I believe is wrong. I don't think that is true. I think those that take their own life are just like a death like any other. I mean, they died from I don't think anyone takes their life that's mentally well.
Right.
And so they're dying from mental illness, essentially is what I'd say. And that doesn't disqualify them from the grace of God. I believe, God's grace extends beyond that even. So, we did an entire podcast episode on suicide. And so, it's hit kind of close to home to me because one of the guys on our staff, his dad committed suicide. And so he's had to really wrestle with what that grief looks like and what that, those challenges that presents. And obviously him being a person of faith, he's had to wrestle with that as well. But we would both argue that, suicide is not a disqualification to, receiving the grace of God at death. Again, because I don't think anyone that's in a healthy state of mind takes their own life. And so,
what about people who aren't saved?
Yeah,
you don't know if they're saved or not.
I say it's really none of my business to judge. Like I don't obviously I believe that salvation requires a faith in Jesus Christ, but at the same time, I don't know necessarily what that means for each individual person. Some people on their deathbed, some people like maybe once and then kind of gone wayward, but they're still, again, it's not
like you
hard.
can't undo your.
Faith. It's hard for me to like play that position of like who's in, who's out. And honestly, I tell people I'm a hopeful universalist. Yeah. So I'm. It shouldn't bring anyone pleasure or delight thinking that there might be people, that are, separated from God forever, or however you want to put it. Hell's on a whole other topic. I don't want to get into all that, but anyway, like, I just put it that way. I'm a hopeful universalist. I think maybe even at the end of the world, the Bible talks about every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, and I'm hopeful that maybe if there are some, Jesus comes back and he rules and reigns, and like I think there might be a moment in which everybody's like, okay, this was legit. Like I heard this Jesus thing, like, this is cool. Like and so, I mean, who knows? I don't know. And I definitely don't preach that message of like get saved or go to hell.
Sure.
That's definitely not what my heart is. I believe that Christianity can offer a hope. Even while you're alive here today, it can offer some type of hope, and more than that, it can offer peace and joy, and really some of the great emotions that we experience as humans. I think, where does that get its root? Where it's like you take everything else circumstantial away, where does love come from? Where does true peace come from? If you take out all the circumstances of your life, where does it find its like base? So those are some of the big like philosophical questions that you just need to wrestle with. And death, unfortunately, that kind of slaps you in the face sometimes, having to wrestle with some of those bigger kind of philosophical questions. So
I think
that's good stuff.
I was quiet for a long time, but I was taking it all in. It's good stuff. I want to give it its fair shake with the stuff we're talking about. In case anybody missed my voice there for the past few minutes.
I was about to ask you. Okay?
Yeah, no, I think it would be good to like talk about. Me and Tiff are both in very different places as far as our spirituality goes. And I think it'd be interesting to talk a little about the differences and how both of those pertain to our relationship with Bo. Like, I think it's safe to say, I'll go first.
Oh, of course you will.
I think it's safe to say, like, you would consider Bo not only a very good friend, but your spiritual advisor. probably the first person you'd go to and you're confused about something to, you know, bounce it off of him.
Oh, she does.
Oh, I do.
Late at night sometimes. And that's fine.
And that's fine.
For me, Bo's just my buddy right now.
Yeah, sure.
You know, we'll see where our relationship goes, Bo.
I have no expectations.
Yeah, sure. But for me, it was what I really like about you, Bo. And I think you're a super cool dude, and I would know, you know, a pretty good judge of that. Is we met. I feel like normally meeting someone in like a church situation is one thing, but meeting a pastor, more often than not, I would assume prior to meeting you, you'd meet them in a church setting.
Yeah,
I met you on a bike ride. Tips like I'm going on a bike ride with my friend, and you guys want to come with, and we did, and I feel like I can hang with just about anybody. I grew up in church. I grew up going to the First Baptist Church here in Mason from the time I was 10 until, I mean, as far as recently as the past couple of years. I'm kind of in a weird place with my faith right now, just because I'd backed off a little bit from church, and then with all this stuff with mom, I'm struggling a lot with, you know, good and evil and, you know, different things. And I just have a lot of questions, but at the same time, I definitely find myself reaching for positivity, and I haven't completely let go of what I've thought my whole life. I'm just struggling, you know? But I think meeting you, we went on that bike ride. We had a good conversation the first time we met. And like you had said, a big turnoff, unfortunately, to Christianity to some people is the feeling of being judged, or the feeling of they're not really getting out of it what they were expecting to from fellow Christians. That being said, the church I grew up into is a very, very old congregation that unfortunately doesn't have a huge interest in that, making that bond between the younger and the older generation. And I have been to your church a few times, and it's cool to, I think I told you this the first time we met, it's cool to hang out with a Christian who can just totally be himself. And that includes everything, you know, none of us are perfect.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
even as a person who teaches about God and believes in it wholeheartedly, you got your chinks in your armor as well as anybody else. And you were your super authentic self to me. And I got to know you and be friends with you, and not just something you have to put on as a pastor. And I appreciated that about you right away. And I think that you know, you came and watched me perform comedy, which, God bless you.
It was great.
It can be a little cringy at times, but
I loved it.
Which I very much appreciated. And I just think, like I said, Tiff's asked me to come to church a few times, and I truly have enjoyed my experiences lately, coming back to church. And it's just, I won't lie and say that I'm not still struggling though. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's
that's
just
understandable.
I'm in a weirder place in my life than I've ever been, for sure, this past 6 months. And it's like a weird teeter-totter. I'm not super sure where I'm headed, but I've enjoyed making new friends, and a lot of them are, you know, godly people that have, but nothing's been forced upon me.
Sure.
Like you said, you know, it's
one of the things that Bo was really interesting about Bo and my relationship with him is that when I first met him, like, he was a fixture in the church, the church that I had chosen to start attending and that sort of thing and plugging into. And so I saw him as like a totally different person than obviously I see him as now. But I've heard him say this through all the years that we've been hanging out, is that he intentionally becomes friends with non-Christians. Because that's what Jesus did.
Exactly.
So, with no intent of,
and it's not like I'm seeking out non-Christian. I got to hang out with this person because they're not a Christian. It just happens.
It just happens.
If I'm in the world, if I'm just being normal, I'm going to be around people that don't have the same belief as me. You know, the last thing we want to be is a holy huddle. You know, like like, it's dumb. Like, that is not the way of Jesus.
You're not seeking out non-Christians to try to bring them to faith.
No.
I mean, because that's just, you know, you're just going to be who you are. And if people attach, you know, some people absorb, like, oh yeah, my friend's a stand-up comedian, and so I started watching more stand-up comedy, or my friend, you know, loves the Lord, so maybe I might look into that, or whatever. But so like just backtracking a little bit, when I first met Bo, I saw him as a totally different person as that I see him now. So it was like, here's this dude who's a pastor in my church that, man, I really hope maybe we can hang out someday. And now it's like, oh, that's my friend Bo, and he has this weird job, so it's
I run a nonprofit.
Yeah.
What were you like, that day you're just like, listen, I invited this Justin guy on this bike ride. He's super weird, but just be cool. And I will say, Paul, something I definitely want to say, and I think I voiced this to you once, but I want to put it on public record. That day when I met Bo and his wife, who's also considered a friend, we were going on this bike ride, and I pull up, and we wanted to meet like over by where, kind of like uptown a little bit, which to me, like the bike ride to the bike ride wore me out. And I got there, and they're all ready, and like Bo's got on like a helmet, and he looks all in shape, and I'm just like, oh, this isn't going to be good at all. And
Son of a bitch.
he just kind of casually said, so I don't know, we usually ride to Nyack. Is that cool with you? And I looked at my wife like, is he calling our bluff? What do we do? And I was like, well, the ambulance can usually get anywhere between 5 to 7 minutes, so I think we're cool. So I'm like, yeah, we'll do that. And I made it all the way out to Nyack. We made it all the way back, and then we hung out at your house around the campfire and really got to know each other. And that to me was like, I had this moment of, I just went on a 10-mile bike ride. Like, I didn't think I could even finish the sentence 10-mile bike ride, and I did it. And that's kind of what motivated me to start eating different and stuff. And actually, since that bike ride, which was kind of like the catalyst, I've lost like 30 pounds. And you are a part of that reason. I appreciate you for it. You too, Tiff. Whatever.
So
you were there,
That's right. I don't need the
Tiff likes to
notoriety.
stand up and pedal all fast and show off. And she was doing wheelies. And
Oh, it's just my ass hurts from my bike seat. I need a reprieve.
but it's usually, like, oh, I went to church and met this guy and became his friend. But for me, it was like, I met this dude and became his friend. And then, I've gone to church. But that was never like a stipulation of our friendship.
No.
Not in the slightest. But,
So, I think it's really interesting because I was actually hanging out with a friend last night who listens to the show. And she said, I find it so interesting when I listen to your guys' episodes because you and Justin have such a different take and perspective on grief. And you guys are in totally different places in your journey, which we've said before, like no two journeys are the same. But, I think like if you were to listen to it, it might seem like Justin's in a little bit of a harder spot than I am. Like maybe I'm a little further progressed through the walk than Justin is. Like, and we've talked about this too, Justin, is like sometimes you just feel like you're stuck and you're kind of stunted in this space. And my friend just said, what do you think that is? Why do you think that you're here and he's over there? And I said, well, again, I think it's that no two journeys are exactly parallel, but I would say my experience just not only walking this several times before, but also because I have, the living hope of Jesus and the comfort in that, and like the comfort in knowing where my son is and my sister and the other people that I have lost. It does help me sort of put my feet in front, one foot in front of the other kind of thing. And so I'm just curious of what your perspective is on, do you think faith is a part of your healing? Is that what you want? Do you think it can help propel you forward in your process? Or do you think it's just a load of shit?
no, not at all that. Those are all very good questions.
Kind of put you on the spot there.
That's all right.
I do that.
I do my best work when pushed into the corner. I definitely have seen that in you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you tell me most stuff. I don't know if I'm in the inner circle, but I feel like
you're edging your way.
You tell me most stuff.
Yeah.
And I try to just process most of that just as your friend and not try to take it on for you, because I know that's not what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it, I secretly think to myself, like, holy shit. You know what I mean? Because as dark as I feel, sometimes you'll express feelings to me that I just feel so effing bad for you. You know what I mean? Like, I try to get it, but it's just like, and at the same time, you'll let me know that what gets you through those super dark spots is throwing it on God. Mm-hmm. And I know that you believe wholeheartedly that what you believe, and I don't see any bullshit in it whatsoever. I grew up in church. I grew up. It's such a weird. I don't want to say I don't believe, because that's not. I think I'm almost certain I still do. Mm-hmm. I'm just like so confused about a lot of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like I don't know what I think either way, and that's almost scarier. Like, it's like you say, for you, it's really comforting to know where Ethan is, to know where your sister is. And I grew up like, that was what my mom always said, was like, she'd say stuff like, I just want Jesus to come back now. Yeah. I don't really want to wait around and die. And like, this isn't that cool anymore. And like, he should just come back now, and we can all just go party in heaven. That'd be cooler, I think. Or, she would, say things like, the same kind of thing, like loved ones. She couldn't wait to see her mom again, things like that. Mm-hmm. And if and when I can get myself there, it's very comforting. But I do have moments of like, what if the lights just go out and that's it?
Oh, yeah.
Or I have a really hard time with, I talked to a family friend who, sometimes when you talk to people who you've known your whole life, and like people that knew my mom like really well, like kind of get it a little bit more than like people that didn't. And I was talking to, it's my mom's best friend's daughter. We FaceTimed, and she said to me, I've made no, I haven't hidden at all my relationship with my stepfather, which is as volatile as ever, going forward with all my house stuff. But she said to me, I can't believe that he's acting that way. If he doesn't get what's coming to him in this life, he definitely will in the next. And part of me is like, will he? What if he don't? What if there isn't? You know what I mean? Because there's still that nagging, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? And like, but I want to. I've enjoyed leaning on the positivity of my friends that believe, and I admire that full-on faith, and I know what it does for you, and a big part of me would like that, but I don't want to trick myself. Yeah.
Well,
and I don't want it to sound disrespectful at all.
No. And I want to be clear, like,
I want to. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the only way to do it. Like the worst thing you can do, and this is honestly why Christians get such a bad rap. The worst thing you can do is kind of.
Right.
Like, you can just kind of have faith. Like, that's like, that doesn't work. Like, that's not possible. Yeah. Like, Jesus makes claims that are like, he's either a liar, a lunatic, or he's Lord. Like, that's it. Like, he's crazy, he's lying, or it's legit. Like, there is no like middle ground, and like, that's the claims that he makes, not that I'm making. Like, that's the claims that he makes. And if you think they're true, that has some serious implications, and it can't be kind of. So I respect you for that. I respect you for that. I think that's amazing. I think it's a great place to be. And I think, honestly, there's probably a lot of Christians that are in that camp, but they're just not willing to admit it.
And I think you being my friend through that is what is, and I know you're not trying to sell me. I know that's not why we're friends, but it is lending itself to me leaning more towards that direction, just because it feels good, and I can sniff out bullshit pretty easy, and you're a genuine dude. Yeah, I could tell that right away. And Tiff's usually such a bad judge of character. She hangs out with some real sketchy folk.
Honestly, it's like politics, and I'm not going to talk politics, but let's just use this as an analogy. As someone could try to convince me forever that my faith isn't real, and it's not going to work. I can try to convince somebody that faith is real forever, and it ain't going to work. Right. Like, it has to be something that you come to and believe yourself. Anyone that's listening, both of you.
And
I mean, I can't do it. I can't, like, sure, I can tell you about how my faith works for me. I can tell you a lot about Jesus. I can tell you about his life. I can tell you about the historical evidence. I can tell you about, like, it's called apologetics, defending my faith. I could go forever, but it doesn't mean you're going to have it. It doesn't mean you're going to own it. It doesn't mean you're going to believe it, you know, like, and that's what I get and I understand about it. So it doesn't do any good. It's like, kind of, like I said, fighting about politics on Facebook. It's like, you're not going to change my mind. Like, until, like, you actually come to that understanding yourself, it's not going to do
You're way
anything.
too humble of a dude to accept what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. I feel if there were way more Christians like you, the Christian faith as a whole would be in a much better place.
Man, yeah, thank you.
We've talked about this. I had seen a quote. I don't know who the quote's from, but it said, people that leave the church don't leave because they don't believe in the teachings of Jesus. They believe in the teachings of Jesus so much that they get sick of watching people pretend about it.
Right.
And because there are a lot, unfortunately, we keep it real on this show.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Christians who you're like, you see them and you're like, how can you say that you follow what it clearly says in this book? Whether you believe it or not, it's a book, you can read it.
Yeah.
And if you do believe it, from what I've seen growing up in church, Jesus doesn't be too sneaky about how he thinks you should act as a person.
Yeah.
And you still can be super judgy and hateful and but be like, I'm doing it in the name of God. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
you're not, dude. Like, and it's like, I think that to me, like, just hanging out and having a good time with you. And like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, people that don't believe in God are just as much real people as the people that do.
Absolutely.
And to put up a weird wall between the two because you believe differently is bizarre to me.
Yeah.
And I think what's important about that statement is to understand that it is not Jesus, it's not God that's creating that division. It's us as his people who are choosing to do that. And that's completely goes against really what, you know, Jesus says and talks about.
No, I could sit around and bash the church forever. But I mean, the reality is though, they're people too.
Right,
and they have problems just like we do.
Yeah.
And like,
We are
that's
gonna
the thing
fail
too.
each
Like
other.
what I've found is I connect way better with just real, genuine, authentic people, whether Christians or not. I love them easily. Who I have a hard time loving are the self-righteous, judgmental Christians.
people don't want to do
but
that.
they deserve my love too.
Sure.
You know, just I mean, they have their own set of issues but it doesn't do us any favors for
A lot
trying
of people
to
don't want to get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, or they think, maybe some people think like if they get too involved with people that aren't of God, that it's going to tarnish what they're trying to do. They're a little afraid of that maybe. But like, I just watched a thing on YouTube about this dude named Daryl Davis, and he's a blues musician who was playing this country bar, and he's a black guy, and a bunch of KKK members showed up because they liked the music that he played, and they got to talking, and he ended up having a one-on-one meeting with like the leader of the national like KKK, and just sat down and listened to what the guy said, even though it was super hateful, and just was his true authentic self to this guy. And over a span of like a year, they became friends, and he got this guy to quit the Klan. And since then, and he's never like encouraged any of these people to quit the Klan. He's just been a real, articulate, genuine, loving human being to these people. Because a lot of the times, these people that hate on that level have never been around the thing that they think they hate. It's hate out of ignorance. And he's, I think, in like the past like 10 years, gotten 200 Klan people to quit the Klan just because they met him and realized that they were wrong about hating someone by the color of their skin. I think in that token, you can make the analogy that by being the kind of Christian that you are and just being a real dude, you're going to attract more non-Christians to, because that's the thing. You can be like, I went to my aunt's funeral, my great aunt, and it was the whole thing wasn't like, this was her life, let's celebrate her life. It was, you're going to hell. You believe in Jesus, you better, I'm going to come up here and write it down, because we almost got that literal, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, and you're going to hell and you're going to burn forever. And she knew Jesus. She's not going to be in hell. You want to be in hell. And it was just depressing.
Yikes.
And it was just this older generation of real strict, that kind of wild version. And it just, that is just the opposite of, you know, the way your approach is. And it's, for me, it's like, you know, like, no one's ever like, oh, I got guilted into going to church. It's always like you see someone and you're like, you know what? You seem happy and you seem really cool. And then you're like, well, this is why I'm that way. And they're like, well, maybe I'll try that out.
Yeah.
That's exactly, I mean, I'm living that in my own life. I mean, I was baptized just only 8 years ago. I was never raised in the church, never raised in a spiritual home or anything like that. But there was always people now in retrospect, looking back, like that were intentionally put in my path just to sort of minister to me. And ministering doesn't mean like teaching me, or the old word of like testifying to you and stuff, which always freaked me out. Those words.
Share your testimony.
Yeah, it always freaked me out. And but there were people that were put in my path that just to show me kindness and grace and love. And yes, they were Christians. And just at that time, it just was like, I just didn't put the two together. But I always thought to myself, man, I really want what they have. What do they got? They got that thing. What's the thing? What is the thing? And so I get what the thing is.
You mentioned a quote there's a quote I love. I don't remember who it is. It's like, oh shoot, I don't remember, but it's like I love your Jesus, but your Christians act nothing like your Jesus. And so like, that's what I would say to anyone that is like on the fence. Like, it's okay to fall in love with Jesus and follow Jesus and not Christianity.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and that is like honestly where I think Christianity gets it wrong. Like, they say like it's this whole attitude of like, well, if you believe, then you will become, and then you can belong. Whereas like, I think it should be the other way. Like, you belong first, and then you might believe, and then you'll become something different. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think it's backwards.
Absolutely.
Like, I think like it's possible to study the history, the science, the data, like look back through time and determine whether or not Jesus was real, and like get that all sorted out first. And then like, you can follow Jesus and like have hope in Jesus without, like, I think the church is important. So don't get me wrong. I don't want to say people shouldn't go to church, but like, you can start there and like, anybody, like I guess I'll say it again. I think you can follow Jesus without being like sold out to like what is modern day Christianity,
Right.
Yeah.
because it gets such a bad rap, and I get that. There's so many other like,
Sure. I think that's
pieces,
me, like kind of almost to a T, like how I grew up is I try to be my very authentic self on stage. My sense of humor on stage is the same one you get hanging out with me. It's a little off color at times. But as growing up, like most of my friends weren't necessarily Christians. I went to the parties. I had a good time. I hung out, and I didn't reflect necessarily outwardly Jesus, but I was in church every Sunday. I truly in my heart and head believed in everything that I was learning. I had a youth director that was like my biggest role model and spent a lot of time with, and like, was taught a lot. And it's that same thing. I believed wholeheartedly in the, like, nobody's perfect, and everybody, if we're talking strictly, I believe in what it is, everybody's a sinner and we can't get away from it. You shouldn't openly try to sin, but you shouldn't suppress who you are as a person either, I don't think.
Yeah.
So like, I think it surprises some people, or at least it did, like when I would tell, because I never hid it at all. Like if someone is like, oh yeah, absolutely, I go to church every Sunday, I'm a Christian. They're like, you? Really? And it's just like, but you have fun and say words, and
yeah,
it's like, yeah, it's weird, huh? It's like,
I get the same reaction people I went to high school with. They're like, you're a pastor,
right?
Like, oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's me.
But then then they're like, huh? So you know what I mean? You learn something. It's it takes all kinds of people.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is. I've met some really interesting, Christians, people I would have never pegged as a follower. People that I was astounded to find out that they were in fact Christians, because they were some of the most hateful and judgmental people I've ever met. But so like, okay, so coming back around,
I was gonna say, bring it back full circle though. I was say, I think like Christianity at its fundamental level speaks to death really well.
Yeah.
I think it provides some answers that I think people
are what I
think
has been interesting about the journey of grief and like the walk with it is that we're so we want to be healed from our pain first and then sort of dive into the faith thing or whatever. And what I think a lot of the times, I think any time that you're dealing with anything that's really, really hard, we're just, as human beings, we are in a rush to process through it very quickly because we don't like the way it feels. So we want to rush through and skip all the work that is with it. But I think walking through it first, and just, I say this all the time, the only way is through, like moving all the way through it and walking through it. There's healing in that, and I think that for me personally, the only way for me to walk it is to lean heavily on my faith and the people that I call it, 12:30 at night. It's like, dude, this sucks. I can't do this. And I was going to say earlier, like, there are still moments that I am just like, what if none of this is real?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I know.
I'm trying to
for
have
sure.
less of those
Yeah.
moments.
But I think you have to stop being so hard on yourself. It's okay, because it's okay to feel those things, because that's the way our brain, I have yet to meet a person of faith that is fully 100% all in
All the time.
all the time.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. It's not healthy if you don't doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
I think
yeah.
doubting-
So I think that's really important to say,
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think also as part of all Christians in churches, they say that if you are doubting at all, well, you need to have more faith. They like view it as a bad thing. They view
Yeah.
it as like, oh, well, you need to pray more or something stupid.
Yeah.
Like they'll say something so dumb. Like, but reality, doubt is one of the most healthy things that a Christian can experience, because then it's reinforcing that, do I really believe this? Is this something I'm really bought into? Is this something that I believe, not just what I was told or taught by my parents or the culture? Is this something that I truly believe? And the more you can ask that question of yourself, the healthier it is. And so again, I find myself laying my head on my pillow at night, doubting,
Sure.
like, this is my job, but I still have those moments. Like, what if this is all just a hoax, But I always come back to, like, again, the resurrection. Like the resurrection of Jesus is like where it all lies for me. But it's yeah, I too. I mean, same boat. It's not like I'm just always there all the time. Like Ethan's death, great example. Being a pastor. I'm also very young for a pastor to be a lead pastor. I'm probably one of the youngest I've ever met or known. I'm in a unique position, and we also have a really young church. And so all of the deaths that I have been personally and closely associated with, Ethan's was the closest that hit home, but there's a couple other ones. A friend of mine named Curtis, he was about my age, passed away. And then there was the 5 kids in a car accident, one that I knew and got to know their family a little bit. His name was Alex. And so it's just young people is all I've really ever dealt with. But Ethan's was the closest to home. But being a pastor, people think, oh, you're like an expert in dealing with stuff like this and trauma. But the answer is no, I'm not. I'm a real human being, and it wrecked me. It absolutely wrecked me. I'm still dealing with the process of grieving Ethan's death in particular. But it's, people look to the pastor for answers, and that's cool. Like I'm fine playing that role too. But it was one, like especially Ethan's death, it was one of those situations where like I needed people around me as well, because I was fairly close to Ethan, and it was all sudden and traumatic for me too. And
so what did you feel like in those moments in the hospital, like just you and him? And
I was crushed, just because this is somebody that I think the hardest part for me, and still to this day, the hardest part for me is like I played a very small role in Ethan's kind of coming to, growing up, and maybe finding faith and giving it a chance at least. And he was just kind of hitting his stride. And that was the hard part for me, is like, God, what the hell, like.
Yeah. But you said something to me in the hospital. Actually, it was when we were all back at the hotel room, and you had said to me something that was really profound, that I think that is really the message that I really want to get across in this episode is, do you remember that? Do you remember what you said?
About letting go?
Well, you said, you said that in that room,
oh yeah.
that that God wasn't doing this to me, because I think especially when you lose a child,
Yeah.
And probably too for you, Justin, is like when you lost your mom, you know, we want to blame someone. And you said something to me that was really profound and has always stuck with me. And I try to tell it to people when they're going through pain and suffering. So what was it that do you remember?
Well, God didn't do this.
Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times God gets the blame for the devil's work, you know, and just as much there's a good force in this world, there's also an evil one, and they're constantly battling, you know, and again, but the beautiful thing about Jesus's life is I think Satan thought he won when Jesus was put into a grave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Satan was probably like, oh, like we did it, like evil, you know,
Prevailed,
but he
yeah.
walked out the other side. And that's why evil doesn't get the final say. It's been defeated already. There's a power greater than the greatest evil in this world. And it's proven that death isn't the final thing we experience as humans. And Jesus proved that. He modeled that. He ushered that in, you know, but you know, the Bible is clear that, you know, Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy, you know, and it's so funny. I mean, this is the greatest debate of all time and always will be, similar to what Justin is wrestling with, is good and evil. Like how can God be good and then allow this to happen to someone I love? Or, you know, so while, yes, I understand those things and it's very real, and I would be in the exact same position, honestly. And I've been very fortunate. I haven't really lost. Ethan's probably the closest person I've lost in my life. You know, I lost some grandparents and I was pretty close to, but no one really like immediate family or people I've saw 2 weeks ago, you know, things like that. Yeah. But, you know, I've been really fortunate, but the thing is like, you know, the evil that's in this world, yes, like, but there's also free choice, and like we're not a bunch of puppets, and he doesn't interject in every situation. Sure, he does some, and again, that's a big mystery. Like, why is there miracles sometimes, and why is there not?
Because of course we were
yes,
praying for miracles in the hospital.
Yeah,
you know,
but it's like I told you though, like
and this is another good point. Was that
you know? Like, and I first heard this from a pastor I worked for. He was talking to a lady who just lost her husband to cancer, and he asked her and said, her name's Mary, and her husband's name is Bill. And she said, Mary, what were you praying for Bill? And she's this old lady. I mean, he was older, but she goes, he'd be healed. And he just looked at her and said, well, he answered your prayer. This was after he'd passed. This is like at the funeral. Right. Like, well, like he answered your prayer. Right. It's just not how we wanted to, you know? Yeah. And that's the thing with Ethan. We were praying so hard, you know, and I was leading those prayers. I was like the one that was like, hey, like this is going to happen. I'm believing in it because God can do it. And then when he didn't, you know, how we wanted it to happen, he was healed wholly and fully, probably even better than he might have been on earth, you know? And again, that's where the hope lies, is that even though our prayers weren't answered the way we wanted to, they were still answered. Ethan is still whole and healthy. And for what I mean, again, that's what I believe, that he's whole and he is healed, and it's just not with us. Yeah. So
it's interesting, the whole, what you were saying about wanting to blame somebody, and, to bring it back to what we've been talking about. The day that my mom died, I hadn't been very close to God for a couple years, probably. I've said on the show many times that my mom struggled with alcohol, which made our relationship very strained. And I remember, like, that morning, I have to remember telling the whole story. I won't refer back to episode 3 because I don't have the tears to go through that whole story again. I got that phone call that Mom was being taken in an ambulance, and I was driving that 6 blocks to her house. And I didn't think about it till just now, but I remember screaming in my car and like just beating on my steering wheel. And just being like, don't take her. And I don't even know if I knew for sure who I was talking to.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I guess I do, but, so, like, that's where I've struggled, because he did. And no, he didn't. I think that's, you know what I mean, though. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't get what I wanted, I guess.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
so now I'm looking down the barrel of this first Christmas that's going to be way different than any Christmas I've ever had.
Yep.
Every tradition's different. And a lot of my traditions were wrapped around, going to church on Christmas Eve, sitting with my mom, all that stuff. And it's all different this year. So I guess my question to you, maybe my last question of the episode, would be, and that's what's cool about our show is, like you said, everybody's different, and I think there's people that can relate specifically to your situation. There's people that can relate specifically to my situation. There's people that can take a little bit from both of our situations.
Sure.
But to those people that, and there's been a lot of them who have reached out to me and told me, like, specifically what I've said or have told people I feel has really, resonated with them. As someone who grew up believing in God, who's maybe struggling a little bit, maybe something like this happened that didn't necessarily help that situation, and they're going into a season like Christmas where they're not sure, and they're not sure what to expect, and they're not sure what to think, and they're not sure what to lean on. What, as a pastor and someone who believes with your whole heart, what would be your advice to somebody like that?
Yeah.
Looking down the barrel of Christmas.
And can I just, before Bo answers that, just from a non-pastor standpoint, and I actually made some notes today. I was just reflecting and feeling really overwhelmed. Just this whole week has just been, I don't know what it is specifically, just feeling really overwhelmed. But, I would say from my standpoint is, as much as I feel overwhelmed with sadness, and so do you, Justin, and going into this and not knowing what it's going to look like and knowing it's going to be hard, and it just feels so gross and it's so great big all the time, and it's just so overwhelming, is that what would it look like to be overwhelmed with gratitude? What would it look like to be overwhelmed for all the years that the 22 years that I had with my son, like the 22 Christmases. So I would say, like, a way that you could take that overwhelming feeling is to turn it on itself and to look at it from God's love for me is so big that he gave me 22 years, and he gave you all those years with your mom. And so, like, I would say that's a practical way to really change your perspective on it. It's still going to hurt and it is still painful, but if you can reframe it a little bit to being overwhelmed with the joy of all those years and the joy of the memories, like, it's just a way that you can make it applicable every day.
Yeah. I want to piggyback off that, and then I'll answer your question.
Okay.
Again, this week we had a gal in our church who, pregnant, went to the hospital, delivered the baby, born without a heartbeat, just this last week. And again, I think that word perspective is a great word to cling to. This mom had no Christmases with this child, and I've told you this, we've talked about this, that day Ethan died in that hospital was not the only child that passed away that day. And that perspective, I think, is very helpful for people, like, kind of get outside. I know your loss is, yes, it's your thing, and I'm not diminishing the pain of your loss, but it could always be worse. I think in a lot of ways, and that perspective helps. So I think that's good. What I would say to people that are struggling, or maybe, you're looking, like Justin asked, I would say you're not giving church a shot. You're not even giving Christianity a shot. I would just echo again, like, give Jesus a chance and put in the work, put in the time. do some research, reach out to me or a pastor and have a conversation, a real conversation.
Yeah.
You know, like, and give Jesus a chance, you know, and Christmas is a lot of things, to become a lot of things, but really Christmas and Christianity is, that's what this season is about. That's what it started. And I know a lot of people try to take that out, you know, and that's a big whole nother thing, taking Christ out of Christmas and all that. But we really celebrate this man, this God who came to earth in the form of a child and was born Christmas Day. But give Jesus a chance is what I would say, you know, and a fair chance, not just like, again, don't get it confused with the church or Christianity and like what comes to that. Just give like Jesus a chance, because if you give Jesus a chance, that's where the true hope lies. And I would even, you know, like, you know, people bring up the Bible and, well, the Bible says this and all this stuff. Well, like, well, Bible isn't my God. Jesus is, you know, and
because
like,
nobody can dispute Jesus Christ was real, and he was. There's
definitely historical evidence, and like, again,
it's a cool.
He was
dude.
either a lunatic, a liar, or he's Lord. Like, and that's
But not
really
fake.
That's like, you know, that's what people are faced with, is like, you know, and people come to that conclusion. Well, it was all a big lie, a big scam. Okay, well, like the 12 disciples lost their life for a lie. Then okay, if you want to go there, then that's cool.
Yeah.
These guys were all killed for it, but okay, so if they're gonna go to their grave with a lie, then I guess it's possible. Yeah. You know, and like, so I mean, that's just, again, like, I know there's very smart, great thinkers on both sides of the argument. I know very, very intelligent Christians. I know very, very intelligent non-Christians and atheists and agnostics, and it just depends on where you.
But if you're gonna pick somebody's life to model your life after, I'd say that's your go-to. You know, I would.
He
say
was pretty great.
Yeah,
But I
it's
think
pretty
that's
great,
a big reason why we asked you. This is something obviously we wanted to cover, and I think when we first started putting this show together, we had ideas that we wanted to do, and this was one that we definitely had on the list, because whether you are a religious or a faithful person or not, and you listen to this show, I think we all can say that faith for a lot of people is a huge part of going through this kind of stuff. Yeah. They go hand in hand in a lot of ways. They make or break faith sometimes. But in the tradition of, we want to cover everything that goes along with this crap, it would be crazy to not cover.
Sure.
That being said, like, just like Bo said, like, we appreciate anybody that listens to this show that doesn't, you know, have
for sure.
a religious
We just
faith.
want to meet everybody where they are,
and we want to let you know who we are and what we're about, and also shed a light on the fact that if you do have a really negative view on the whole thing, there's guys like Bo, you know what I mean, that are just cool dudes, and it's not a hope, you know, if you're just like, oh, just like, there's no hope for me in that, like, there's very cool people that believe in God, and the fact that they believe in, I believe that that's a big part of why they're cool, you know what I mean, like,
because no questions off the table.
Right. And I think, like you said, like, if anyone has any questions for Bo, he's very not hard to find. I don't know what would be the best way, if someone wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, there's a couple ways. You know, you can call our church phone number. I'll give you that. It's 641-425-1255. 641-425-1255. You can call there and ask for me, or you can leave a voicemail on my direct line if I don't answer. But then you can also email me or go to our website. You can find my email there. I would encourage you to check out our website. It's a great place to just kind of get a feeler.
We'll put that on our page.
It's www.rhythmchurch.org, or my email address is bo@rhythmchurch.org. So yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody. And again, similar to like my experience with Justin, like, if you just want a friend that happens to be a Christian, I'm down to do that too.
It's a good way to start.
Yeah, I'm not gonna preach at you or share Bible verses or that's like, I had somebody just reach out. Anyway, somebody was like, I talked to somebody that was they're kind of going through a divorce, and she was like, well, last thing I need somebody to sit down and share a Bible verse with me, and she goes, but I know he wouldn't do that. I'm like, you're right. I would never do that.
He wouldn't do that.
You know. So
I
anyway,
think in all the years that we've been friends, he's probably whipped out a scripture on me maybe once or twice, but it was very.
Sometimes it's applicable.
It was
but it's,
it was.
I'm a normal person. Like,
Yeah.
just talk about Christmas gifts. My family used to get me like Christian T-shirts and stuff, and I'm like, no, like I want a video game.
Yeah. I like
Anyway.
video games too.
Yeah. So anyway,
Thanks
for having me.
I want to
Yeah.
say thanks for
Yeah,
coming.
thanks for having me.
It's cool to one thing I did want to mention is my first experience with you was Ethan's funeral. I didn't get to meet you until a few weeks after Ethan's funeral. I have been to my fair share of funerals, and by nature of it, unfortunately, sometimes with any luck, most people that die are fairly old, and a lot of the people that knew them well on the level of someone that could officiate their funeral maybe isn't around anymore.
Sure.
And it's obviously a hard job and unavoidable, but a lot of pastors that officiate funerals didn't get to meet the person that they're doing the funeral for, or they just met the family. And I've seen that time and time and time again. And Ethan's was the first funeral where I watched you speak, and it was very clear, as someone who was pretty foreign to the whole story and the situation and the dynamic, that you were hurting just as much as everyone else that got up there, which was interesting to see, because it just goes to show even more, like, you're still just a human, even though you're the pastor, you know, and like we all have relationships and bonds and things that we go through. And it just, the fact that you didn't shy away from that, I think not to speak for Tiff and her family, but I think that they really appreciated, as an outsider, it made me feel like I knew him a little bit more without ever getting to meet him. And that's a gift you have, my friend.
Well,
and,
thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, it was not easy.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, but
Can't imagine.
you killed it though.
You did all right.
Yeah.
You did all right.
Well, we're up to our hour here, but I did want to just wish you both super Merry Christmas.
You
Yeah,
too.
I think we kind of wanted to let everyone know that we aren't really sure what the next couple weeks are going to look like for us. We're going into it optimistically.
Are we?
Well, as much as we can.
Yeah.
But we got good people around us. The show isn't ending,
Yeah.
but we're going to take a short little break just to get through this. Not only is it Christmas, my first Christmas without my mom, and Tiff's first Christmas without Ethan, but it's all a big whammy for Tiff. It goes Christmas, New Year's, and then her birthday right after New Year's.
Which is also the day that my sister committed suicide. So it's all very much, yeah.
We're
so
all
gonna need a little
we're
break.
just gonna pat her on the head until everything's gonna be okay, and not ask her to talk into microphones for a few weeks.
Nice.
That being said, we plan to stay active on the Facebook.
Yep.
And keep in touch with us. It's not gonna be a long break. We're gonna start back up at the beginning of the year. We've got a lot of really cool plans, a lot of cool interviews, a lot of great stuff to still talk about.
Because we heard that in 2021 that like everything gets better.
Yeah, I think so,
yeah. The clock starts over, and then like everybody's good again. Like no more virus, no more pain and suffering. Yeah, I heard that somewhere.
It's tragedy savings time.
I love it.
Everyone gets their happiness back. We're hoping, but we like I said, we're gonna take a couple weeks, just to recharge the battery and get back to it. I want to say we appreciate everybody that's taken, whether you've listened to one episode or you've subscribed and listened to all of them. To anyone, especially Bo, my wife Alyssa, Heather, anyone who's all the people that have been on here with us to talk about their situations. We know firsthand this isn't the easiest stuff to talk about. So anyone that's put themselves in that vulnerable position, we very much appreciate you guys too. Tiff, I want to say I like to spring this on you at the end. We're looking at each other deep in the eyes. I appreciate you a lot. I was gonna not cry in this one. I was gonna get through it, get tough, but this has been a crazy year. And I don't think it's gonna get that better when the year changes. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna pretend on that one. But we've said it so many times that sometimes good stuff comes out of bad stuff.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that as much as I wish my mom was still here, I can take at least a little bit of comfort knowing that if this wouldn't have happened to me, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't be such good friends. We wouldn't talk every day like we do. We wouldn't spend the time together like we do. And I've absolutely cherished every second of it. And I know we're going to do lots more fun stuff together and get each other through this crap. But I just want you to know that just your friendship this past 6 months is one of the biggest things that's at least got me where I'm at. I'm not out of the woods, but I've put some trees behind me, I think. And I just want to say thanks.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And when you're done being a pussy over there, I'll just tell you.
You're the worst person.
No, you're a special dude to me, and it's been an honor to come alongside you, and you're helping me as much as you say I'm helping you. So I appreciate you, and got a lot of years to trudge through this mud together. So
We'll figure it out.
heck yeah, we will.
And that's fine.
And that's fine. Merry Christmas, Justin.
Merry Christmas, Steph. Guys, until we get back to you, have a great end of the rest of the year. Have a great Christmas. Have a great New Year's. Again, thank you both for joining us.
Thanks
Being
for
our last episode of the year.
Thanks for having me.
Until we meet again, hang in there.